The goal itself is not the stretch. People are talking about it, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to optimize. We're not setting impossible goals because they are out of reach. We are setting them because they reveal the identity that is required next. The reason you're not hitting your goals is not because they're too big. It's because of what you do right after you set them. I started noticing this with my clients. Every time they would set a big goal, the exact same thing would happen. So I decided to test something. I asked my clients to create a 90-day impossible goal, something that would require a whole different internal operating system. Most goals extend your current identity. An impossible goal requires a new one. And so when I say impossible, I don't mean something that cannot happen. I mean something that your current identity would not naturally produce. So the goal is impossible for the version of you that exists today, but it is natural for your next level. At first, the idea of that impossible goal feels exciting, but then pretty quickly that changes as you start to think about the logistics, the time, what other people will think. And so I want to share with you what I saw happening on my coaching calls in real time. The moment someone chose a goal beyond their current reality, their current identity starts speaking. It starts questioning. It starts trying to solve things. It starts to try to protect them. And then most people would interpret that as part of the strategy process. They think they're being logical. I'm just being logical. I'm just trying to figure this out. But what's actually happening has to do with their identity. When people talk about big goals, the conversation almost always centers around the execution and the strategy. What needs to be done? What needs to be eliminated? What are the systems and processes that we have to put in place? What habits do we need to change? And of course, all of that matters. I'm not dismissing it. But there's a foundational layer underneath all of this that is rarely addressed, and that is who you have to become in order for that goal to exist in your life because of the identity shift that is required. So the strategy can only be executed if that identity shift happens. Otherwise, you will find yourself being pulled back into what feels familiar. So when I introduced this concept of a 90-day impossible goal to my clients, I was very intentional with the language. Impossible does not mean that it cannot happen. It does not mean that it's unrealistic. It simply means that it is not available to your current identity. And that distinction really matters because what most people do is they look at the size of the goal and assume then that the problem is the goal itself. You know, I was thinking too big, but the goal is not the problem. The identity is. And one of the things that I've done to help people, especially when they lock into that big goal, is something called the rally cry. And it is a whole episode that I did that so many of my clients will listen to on repeat, and you can find it in the description linked below or right up in the corner. Just click that link. As soon as we set these goals, the questions start coming in. And what's so fascinating is that on the surface, every question looked different. My clients are in different industries. They are dealing with different circumstances, but underneath, they were all the same conversation. It was the old identity trying to stay in control. And it's so subtle and sneaky because, like I said, it sounds very logical and reasonable. Like any reasonable person would be asking this. But ultimately, it was all rooted in maintaining the current way of being. So here's one way to think about what is happening. Okay, so let these lines represent different levels of frequency. And let's say that your goal is up here. This is where your goal is. It's up here, okay? And right now, you're here. This is now. This is where you are. And now, here, You have thoughts, feelings, and actions. Well, where your goal is, you have thoughts, feelings, and actions as well. So you are here and you want to get to here. And most people will think, okay, to get to that big goal, I'm just going to take these incremental steps. No, what you want to do is jump to where the goal is. And from that place, you start to operate. So you're operating from the goal, from your thoughts, feelings, and actions. And I'm going to really bring this home to you in some real life examples that happened on my calls. So one client mentioned that she has a goal of a 7-figure business and she also wants to go to Europe with her family. So she was thinking, I've got to choose between the two, because she was imagining that success in her business would require her to not have a personal life. But what if the vision we are building is one where she is becoming the person that can create both, and that will feel impossible to her current identity? So the goal here is both, but the now version of her can't imagine that. So the issue is that her current way of operating cannot hold both. So the 90-day goal becomes generating $250K and taking my family on a trip to Europe. And this matters because she wants to build a business that supports her life, not consume it. And she wants success and presence to exist together. So that does exist here where the goal is. It doesn't exist here, but for her current identity down here, she can't imagine how to have both. She could imagine that she could definitely be hustling with her business or take her family on a trip. That's what exists now. So what we have to do is get her to operate from where the goal exists, because the fact that she can think about it means that going to Europe and creating $250K in the next 90 days exists. But her logical mind wants to pull her back down to where she is now. Okay, let me give you another example. Another client said in her 90-day impossible goal was to generate $100,000 in revenue. And as she spoke about it, I could actually hear what was really going on underneath the surface. You see, she'd left her corporate job where she was very, very successful. And she was also the breadwinner in the family. And what I was hearing was what she was unconsciously carrying, which was this: I'm the breadwinner. This has to work. I left something stable for this. So now this goal of 100K is not something fun and exciting to go for. It's now carrying immense pressure and an element of her having to prove herself. I have to prove that this will work. So now, as a result, the strategy of having a masterclass, networking, visibility, it all feels loaded, because right now 100K in 90 days isn't just a goal. It's carrying her past identity, her income expectations, and her sense of security. So of course it feels heavy. It feels heavy for where she is right now. So here's the thing. We didn't necessarily need to change the goal, but what we needed to do was change her relationship to the goal. And from that, realize that she's not rebuilding her whole corporate income in one masterclass. So are you seeing that this has nothing to do with strategy, but rather competing identities? The version of her that's up here with her goal, that version is not thinking the way her current version is. Another client of mine owns 3 locations of a healthy fast food restaurant. Lots of salads. And her question was operational on the surface. If she created a 90-day revenue goal, which is what she really wanted, she feels she has to hire more staff. She is somebody that deeply cares about her staff and is also often pulled back into the business, covering shifts and becoming really the system that holds everything together. Her current model is, I hire exactly what I need, I protect my team, I fill the gaps myself. That's her now. This model creates dependency on her, which honestly, part of her identity really likes, even though it's not convenient and sometimes she resents it. For the revenue that she wants to create, her next level, the goal, will require that the business has built-in capacity, which means that she leads the business. It's not covering for everything. What I brought her attention to was that she was not choosing between taking care of her team and growing her business. What she was actually deciding between was, will she continue to be the capacity in her business, or will she build capacity into her business? This, my friends, is the CEO identity moment. And that is what is so beautiful about creating a 90-day impossible goal, is that it reveals all the cracks you can't hide, people. And it shows you what is no longer relevant, what you can no longer tolerate or accept, and what needs to be released to create space for the goal. What all of these moments have in common is that the goal itself is not the stretch. The identity is. And this is the part of the conversation that is so often skipped. People are talking about it. They focus on what to do, how to do it, when to do it, how to optimize, how to be more efficient. But they don't look at who they are being while they are doing it. The way I teach this is simple. We're not setting impossible goals because they are out of reach. We are setting them because they reveal the identity that is required next. The goal is not the thing you chase. It never is. It is the thing that exposes who you need to become, because goals are to grow. And from there, the work is not about forcing the outcome. It's about stabilizing that identity so that the outcome becomes a natural byproduct, because you are thinking, feeling, and acting from the goal. The goal has to happen. So if you're setting a goal right now and you feel that tightening happen and you're feeling some hesitation and resistance, what I want you to know is that there's a powerful question that you can ask yourself, which is, who do I believe I would have to become in order for this to happen? And then look at that answer honestly. Is that actually true? Or is that simply a projection of a version of you that you are no longer available for? Because often what you are resisting is not the goal. You're resisting becoming someone that you've already decided you no longer want to be. And that's where the real work begins. If this episode is one that really made a difference for you, will you do me a favor? First of all, hit subscribe if you haven't done that already, if you're watching this on YouTube. Download, rate, review, do all of the things, because that really helps us get it to more people. But also, I would love if you shared this episode. And if you're going to create a 90-day impossible goal that would require a new version of you, send it to me. Please DM me on Instagram, because I want to know what that goal is. All right, I'll see you here next time.